Hello, and welcome to the Mead Hall. My name is Jay, and I'm your host for today at the Mead Hall Gaming Podcast, in which we will be taking you through some interesting looks into our hobby adventures and general aspects of the hobby world that we enjoy, predominantly Warhammer, but there may be further indulgences in our hobbies that we may look into in the future. But until we get to that stage, I'd like to introduce you to my team, or reintroduce you to the team as the case may be, and we're going to be starting with...
Hello, I'm John.
Hi, I'm Elle.
And I'm Joe.
Thank you very much, guys, and welcome to the podcast yet again.
Back on it.
Good to be back.
Back on the grind.
Yeah. So, as you might notice, we have made quite a significant change in the past few weeks, and the odd video here and there. There's been a few changes and adaptations, and those are going to be barreling forward as we continue, including the new format for today and going forward, in which we will be breaking up these podcasts into 3 segments, and we're going to be focusing on some interesting topics of conversation. But before we get on to any of that, we're actually going to start with our recurring feature that we developed a little while ago and we quite enjoyed, so we're going to keep,
We are indeed.
which will be our Tankard Talk. So, welcome to Tankard Talk, and today, you ladies, gentlemen, and all in between, are going to be grilling me on some hobby, I believe.
Grilling's a strong word.
Yeah,
Just
we're
an
gonna.
an opportunity for you to say what you've been up to and let the fine people know what has been done.
Defend your lack of painting.
No, I must defend him. He has been quite. You have been quite productive. You have done a couple of things that have involved painting. Not much, but you have done a couple of things. So I will jump to his defence on that one. For once.
I mean, Joe's not wrong, I haven't done much painting. But there have been other things in the works, and, you know, you'll have already seen quite a few of those already with the updates to the graphics and whatnot that's been going on the channel, and some other things that are a little bit more personal that I've had to deal with. So, hobby's taken a bit of a backseat. And to be fair, I have taken a couple of weeks off.
To play Baldur's Gate.
To play Baldur's Gate, yes. Yeah. There's no denying it. I bought that game a year ago and still haven't finished it. Pretty close now, though.
Cozying up to Shadowheart.
Yep.
That's a topic for a different day.
Definitely a topic for a different day. Yes, so what I have been working on is a couple of gaming tools for Epic. As well as for 40k.
They're beautiful.
The topic of Epic will be coming out very shortly.
Or Legions Imperialis.
Of course, Legions Imperialis, which will potentially, depending on when this particular podcast is released, may have already come out, but just as a potential spoiler if you haven't already figured it out, but there may be some Epic coming to this channel, or Legions Imperialis. Whether it's pure Legions or not, we're not. Well, let's be fair, it's definitely not going to be pure Legions.
No.
Nope.
We definitely have at least one Xenos faction already going to be involved.
Yep.
So that will be interesting.
It will be.
And I have actually, since my previous time on Tankard Talk, I have actually painted 2 entire armies for Legions, to be fair.
Yes, you have, actually.
That is true.
So in fairness, actually, if you think about it that way, I have painted quite a lot.
You go by like individual model count. You've probably painted more models in this period of time than you painted ever before.
Yeah, I mean, I painted over 100 Space Marines.
It helps that it's what 32.
Yeah. They are teeny tiny, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
They
And
are
they're-
really did.
And they're definitely gonna be the only things that you're needing to make for Legions Imperialis.
Definitely the only things I'm ever going to make for Legions Imperialis.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Definitely.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
There's definitely nothing else on the cards.
That's a topic for another day.
Topic for another day.
Yes, so the Legions has gone well.
Yes, the Legions has gone quite well. I've still got another half of my army, or armies, to do. Because I did get quite a large number of models for Imperials to get us all run in.
I mean, just looking at 2 boxes up there.
Yeah, 2 big startup boxes.
I'm looking at the shelf because Jamie's got all of his terrain shelves up behind the camera. I'm looking at a whole shelf of buildings that need painting as well.
Yes, there's an entire shelf of 3D printed Legion scale city buildings.
And there's all the pipes.
Yeah, there's a box full of pipes and barriers and all sorts. So the train's also been in production as well.
Speaking of Space Marines, they're behind over there.
Yep.
That's wave 2.
You just see the little dots of blue over
They're
there.
so giddy. I've never seen something so small to use for a tabletop game in my life. They're adorable.
They are very cool.
They're very good.
But again, topic for another video.
Yeah.
Or potentially
The next
on
one.
the timeline, the previous one. We may have already done this or not. Who knows?
Time is weird.
Time is very weird, especially when you record like we do.
Yeah.
So, right, well, I don't think there's a whole lot really else for me to discuss in terms of what I've actually done, because there's not a whole lot really, apart from obviously the Legion stuff, which will hopefully be featured on a video at some point in the future.
I think it's going to be the one that we take forward.
Yeah, I think we're definitely keen to show it off. I mean, we've already played it a little bit, and we're quite happy with what we've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good fun.
Definitely some room for some expansions that we're not confident Games Workshop will do yet. Xenos.
Yep.
Xenos.
Yeah.
Which again, another topic for another video.
Yeah, it makes sense why they haven't, but
It does and it doesn't. Yeah. But again, we'll discuss that later. Okay, cool. Well, I think that is probably enough for Tanker Talk today.
yeah.
Really, it's quite a swift and short one, really. But then again, when you don't do a whole lot of hobby for a few weeks, that's going to happen.
It's good that you've done something. Though.
Oh yeah.
And keeping
Yeah,
up with it.
and all the new graphics that you put together for the channel.
We love them. Like, they're amazing.
They are very good.
Yeah, they are very cool.
Also, I will shout out my friend Josh Calicott if he ever bothers to watch these videos. He has been a great help to me actually putting a lot of this together and helping me learn how to do a lot of stuff for myself as well. He's done a few bits for us as well. I mean, he was quite instrumental in the new logo design. Did most of the physical work himself on that one. With just me sat on the end of the phone saying, yes, no, I don't like this, change that. Basically directing him on it. But so yeah, just a shout out to you there, Josh, if you do end up watching this. Thank you very much for your support, and it has been very much appreciated, and we are very much happy with the new logo, aren't we?
Very good.
It's fabulous.
It's great.
Very clean. Very nice. So that'll be the end of Tanker Talk, so we will see you in the next one. Welcome back. So, on to today's main topic. Okay. So today's main topic is going to be what I've named Faction Paralysis. Basically, the inability to pick a faction and stick to it.
Oh.
I would know nothing about that.
No, I personally have no idea whatsoever.
I don't know what your guys' problem is, because that sounds way harsher than I was expecting it to come out. But, because I genuinely, until we started thinking about doing Legions, or talking about doing Legions, I've stuck with the wolves. So I don't really, I don't know.
Well, we're not furries, for one.
Right, I'm just going to point out to you, my darling, that although you have stuck to your wolf sisters, have you not on many occasions announced your intention to also start a Space Wolves Space Marine army?
Listen. They're the same. Like, they're still wolves. So it's...
Same theme, yes. Different army.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I guess that's because I'm going straight into a converted army before actually actively starting the original army that they're based on. I guess that's why. And also Russ. Everybody knows I love Russ. So I don't know, maybe it's that.
I think there's also a slight difference in like your approach to this compared to, at least from my perspective of it. Because you come in and gone, this is this story that I am fascinated with.
Oh yeah.
And I want to do you've looked at it and gone, these are the things that I want to make because of the story I want to create.
Sure.
I've come in it with, those rules look really interesting. Oh, but those rules look really interesting. Oh, but those rules look really... And I'm like, I want to have... The Faction Paralysis comes from, how do they feel to play? How do they feel to play? Like, there's a... I think that's that slight disconnect to it.
Yeah, I can understand that, definitely.
But there's still characters and stories that I like around the things, but there's very much like I want to try everything.
Mm.
Which is then different from... I think both of us are fairly similar in the we just want to design an absolute ton of different things and just want to get like ideas for designs for factions all the time.
Yeah, that's definitely my problem. Is I just like making new stuff. I can't stand. I struggle to make something out of the box.
Your problem is maintaining. You struggle to maintain with one thing at one time because you'll do something for that one thing that will be connected to another army, and then you'll be like, oh, I really like that, and then you'll deep dive into that other army and you'll be like, oh, now I want to do that one as well. Because that's what happened with you and was it Gene Stealers? I think.
To a degree.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is this will link into another video that we'll do. I love making the stuff and I get really enthusiastic about making it, and then as soon as I've made it,
you have to paint it.
I then have to paint it. And then I think, do you know what, I'd rather go and make another army.
Because then at least you can make it and then you can just leave it unpainted and then move on to yet another thing.
I mean, the army I really want to make, this idealised army I want to make, I can't physically make. Because one, it would take an extraordinary amount of time and effort and money. But also the sheer prospect of spending all of that time making it to then have to paint it scares me to death.
So, I think probably for a bit of context setting, and it's probably worth going through like what we have made that led to this kind of discussion here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Shall we start with the least?
Yeah. you are in the category of probably don't have the same faction paralysis.
I am the baby. I am the newbie. So yeah, but the thing is, I haven't made nothing. Oops, my mic dropped. I haven't made anything. Really, as far as I've gone with my sisters is. Some of, they're all headless. So they're unpainted. They don't have their heads on because Jamie was making me some customised heads. And I've barely patch tested, their colour scheme. So I have done literally, the very least. And then it kind of got to a point where I was time wasn't of an essence and I didn't have, as much time to be able to do hobbying with. So I then went into more of the lore and deciding what rules to use and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, oh, I like cyber wolves. Oh, what the Space Wolves Space Marines have? What do they have? And then I just went deep dive straight into the deep end and was just like, now this is a hole I can't crawl out of because I want to do both. Because I want my sisters, but I also want them to have Space Marines in the army as an allied part of the army. So it's very complicated, but I definitely have a problem when it comes, don't laugh at me. I definitely have more of a problem when it comes to the creative narrative side of it rather than like the physical making. I struggle to sit down and paint. Like the idea of it, I like the idea of it, but then I sit down and I do it, and it's just like it's not stimulating enough for my brain, so it really, I struggle to be able to want to find time to actually paint. Because Jamie goes on at me all the time, you know, oh, you've had this time to paint, and I'm just like, yeah, I do, but it's not that I don't want to, but I just need to be in a certain frame of mind, and then that frame of mind never comes up, and it's just like never-ending little circle like that. So
it's more like a mind kind of like there isn't a place where you want you are with painting.
Yeah, and I guess that because Warhammer isn't like anything I've done before, like I've done performing arts, and like that was most of my life basically, and I never really got to do any kind of other creative hobby other than writing. So like writing the Sisters lore and all of that stuff, and incorporating the Space Wolf lore in with their lore, like that's like a comfy zone for me. Like I was able to actually like do that well and focus on that really well because that's what I'm good at. So when it comes to sitting down and painting, like I'll do one and then I'll be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know. It's a bit of like a weird like sort. I've got myself into like a little like a weird paradox almost, like going back on myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's not like the faction itself is where you are happy with it. You just don't want to paint them.
No.
Which is fair. Like that's
Yeah.
Problem is that kind of need them painted.
Kind of need them painted. The thing is, I really want the sisters to come onto the channel. I would really love that. I would really love them to come on the channel and then be the 40k faction that I play on the channel. But it is getting them finished and getting them done and painted up with heads on.
I mean, you could learn to do it yourself.
Yeah, I know.
I was just musing on this is going to be an interesting one when it comes around to mine, which may be a solution to the problem. But I feel like Joe's probably next because again less. We're in the camp of we're too far gone. We're a problem. We're a problem in different ways.
I don't know though, because like I've had a lot of armies.
I mean, you've had quite a few in the time I've known you. But
Yeah.
I definitely think I outpace you in number and quantity.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you've got more, but smaller.
I have
lots of dips.
I have a scattershot approach. I've had a scattershot approach.
Whereas I've got lots of large projects. You've got lots of small projects.
In a ref like. We'll come to it in a second because my hobbying is like 2021 onwards. Like that is when I dipped my toes in and apparently just then decided, well, the toes in, might as well just sink to the bottom of this stage. But yeah, I think because you've had more time and I think less army spread across more like
Yeah. It's more of a yours is more like condensed in, whereas like. Because I started painting ultramarines and then immediately switched over to white scars.
I don't blame you.
And then what was after that? I think after that was Custodies, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Custodies after that.
Yeah. So then after that was Custodies, and then after that was Death Guard.
Yep, because we both decided to go Chaos at the same time.
Yeah, we were Chaos at the same time. Then it was briefly Emperor's Children.
Oh, lovely.
Oh yeah, you did do Emperor's Children for a while.
Yeah, I did. I think I got exactly 2 units painted, and one of those units was a character.
Did you use more than 3 paints?
I have only used 3 paints for the Tyranids. I have used more than 3 paints for every other faction I have done.
Sorry, I really couldn't help myself.
I almost feel at this stage we're gonna put when you put your name, it's gonna be Joe 3 Paints Travers.
But yeah, so it was briefly Emperor's Children, and then I think... Did you Iron Hands after that?
Oh boy.
Did you actually ever make anything for your Iron Hands? I know you
Yeah, I
were
made
going.
3 characters
Did
for
you?
my Iron Hands.
I know you were going to, but that died off because of something else, but I can't remember what.
Yeah, I made 3 characters for the Iron Hands, and then... I think after that it's Tyranids.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And you've kind
I
of...
think I was going to do something else after Iron Hands, but I think that was... We didn't play for a while, and then, because you were moving and things,
Yeah.
and so I didn't make anything else, and then now it's Tyranids.
Didn't you go back to Custodies for a bit as well?
No.
No, never went.
No.
It's the only thing with Jones, he never goes back.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, really.
Yeah, lots of factions, but also not really, like, you have quantity of, you always make at least sort of an army,
Yeah.
whereas I will get, like, I think I get overly ambitious with the converting of things, to a point where, like, I mean, Custodes was heavily converted.
I mean, your main character for it was phenomenal,
Yeah.
but so impractical.
So impractical, and the transport of all of the Custodes units were so impractical, and then like painting it on top of that, and it was all like little chains and things. And similarly with the Death Guard, it was all like little tentacles and like stuff like that, and like hand sculpted stuff, and like.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but don't you have a Mortarion that you don't actually have, as it were?
Come again?
I haven't almost finished Mortarion, yeah. It's mostly made of hand sculpted bits.
You have the one Primarch of the entire table, and you haven't finished it.
Yep.
I mean, if you really want to be picky, I have 3, but yeah, but 2 of mine are in boxes, and one of them was a 3D print.
Yeah, I have the actual model as heavily converted in the shed, awaiting maybe being finished at some point.
Didn't I buy you one of those Primarchs?
You did.
I did, from Warhammer World.
Yes, I've always wondered where that Mortarion ended up, because I was really excited when you said you got it, and then I never saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I showed you how far I got with it.
Probably that was a while ago.
Yeah, but it was quite a while ago, and like, yeah, it was a lot of green stuff sculpting, and I'm not that good.
So I guess the question, to a certain degree, is what makes you move on from an army then? Because you said started, moved on, started, moved on, started, moved on. Never
Yeah.
come back. But what's the drive that makes you move on?
Do you get bored?
I think so. Yeah.
Because
It's a combination of like getting bored and like
wanting something new.
that and like with certain factions it's been like overcomplicated. Like they're overcomplicated. Like the amount of hand sculpting on the Custodes and on the Death Guard was unsustainable across a whole army, because like with the Death Guard as well, with like Poxwalkers, tiny unit, screaming unit, but I was like hand sculpting all the bits, like carving up Space Marine scouts and hand sculpting them into things, and like that across the whole army was just really unsustainable.
That's what we would call ambitious.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds almost like you overcomplicated it for yourself.
Yeah, and then I did the same with the Custodes with all the like fire and the chains and stuff, and then
At least with Custodes, you can get away with less units. Like if you're gonna go with an army where you're gonna hand sculpt every unit you
Everything.
put on the table, Custodes is the right call to make.
Yeah.
But I still think it's unsustainable.
which is why I think I got further with the Custodes than I did with Death Guard.
Yeah, she had quite a decent sized army with them. didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Decent sized in Custodes terms, anyway.
Yeah. And then the Iron Hands again was too complicated, because even though I was 3D printing it, it was like I was doing all the like mechanized bits and trying to make every single one like an individual character. It's like, yeah, with a Space Marine-sized army is unsustainable.
So my question is now, you've stuck with the NIDS Xenomorph NIDS for a little while now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Do you think that you will stick out longer with them now?
Before you answer that, though, have you stuck with them, or have you been secretly working on something else? Because I know what John's like, and I know what I'm like.
We'll go into my takedown in a second.
I've had a couple, I've done a couple of models in different factions. I did some Colonial Marine Guard to go, but that was to go alongside the Xenonids, really. And I printed some Grey Knights. But that's more because I liked the prints and wanted to have a couple models, less of a, I'm going to do a faction. It was just kind of try something different.
Yeah, sure.
Which you can afford to do when you've got a 3,000 point army ready and painted.
Yeah, I think the thing with the NIDS is the army is so simple.
Yeah.
And every print I've got comes in one piece. It's just ready to go.
And only requires 3 paints.
And it only requires 3 paints. It requires 5, but sure.
The joke is 3 and it's just going away.
But yeah, so I think from that, as far as I'm concerned, I want to stick with the NIDS because they are so simple. And I like how they turn out. It's the White Scars were simple, technically, because they were just baseline Space Marines, but I didn't really like them aesthetically, so...
Yes, I envy you for picking Tyranids. I really do. I wish I'd done it years ago.
You wouldn't have been able to sustain it. Because you'd have got bored.
I would have got bored, but at least I could get an army out quickly.
You do have a problem with getting bored, though, with what army or faction or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, to a degree.
But I think we've all established, and we're going to establish in a second, we all get bored. It's the ways that we interact with that. What you do when you get bored.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. For me, it's not. I don't necessarily get bored of the army. I just get bored of. I get bored of doing it when I realise I've got to paint it. That's what puts me off every single time. As soon as I know I've got to paint that stuff up, I just think, nah, I don't want to. I'd rather do something else. So I just move on and make another army. Hoping that one day I will make an army that I love so much that I will want to paint it. Has yet to happen.
Did that not happen with the Blood Angels, when you did Blood Angels?
No. Honestly, I have no idea how I painted that army.
And it's so beautifully painted as well. I think it is. Though I am the one wearing glasses.
It's pretty naff compared to what I do now. But yeah, I do actually have about almost 4,000 points of Space Marines, I think.
But how many armies do you actually have here? You've got...
Oh, God. So I've got Space Marines, I've got Chaos Marines, I've got Thousand Suns, Necrons, Drakari, Votan, all of which are about 1,000 points or more. There's between 3,000 and 4,000 points of Space Marines. There's about 2,000 points of heavily converted, shall we say, Thousand Suns. There's about 1,000 points of Space Marines, Chaos Marines or equivalent in there. There's about 1,000 points worth of Votan in there. There's about 500 to 700 points of Drakari in there.
Yeah, because you were doing Drakari for a little bit, and then...
Yeah, because I loved making it, and the idea I loved. And then as soon as I finished making them, I was like, I don't paint.
Yeah.
I think Drakari takes the prize for being your fastest burnout on one.
Trust me, you have no idea the hours that he spent in this room making it. He was so thrilled with himself. And then he was like, I'm going to move on now. And I was like, why? The boats look amazing. I don't want to paint them.
It looks so good, but they are large panels.
Yeah.
Hard
I
to
do
paint.
get it.
Yeah, it's just the prospect of painting it. I just don't want to do it. Terrifies me, the idea of painting it.
So I suppose...
I have no idea how many points worth of Necrons I've got. I've lost track.
I mean, you've got Tesseract Vault there, which is, I don't know how many
It's
points.
about 600 points or
Yeah.
500 points, something like that.
And I think in that cupboard down there, you've got about...
Well, that's the old wave, because when I first came back to 40k, I started with Necrons. And I had, at the time, this was early 8th edition, I think I had about 2,500-3,000 points of Necrons back then.
But
Since then, I've also got another about 2,000 points of Necrons. So in total, I've probably got about 5k of Necrons.
You've actually gone back to Necrons now, haven't you?
I have started to go back to Necrons because they're so much easier to paint.
And you are obsessed with wanting a monolith.
Yeah, I have to say, the monolith does make me want
Yeah.
more.
They are cool.
They're beautiful.
Because I never got the original monolith, even with the other set. I only got the Tesseract Vault because I got it very cheap second hand. But the new one, ever since that came out, I do kind of want it. Yeah,
It's a cool model.
it's a cool model. But now, I mean, the realization about how much I hate painting is quite a new thing for me. I've always known I didn't like it. It's only recently I realised that is the reason I keep flitting between armies. Which is why I've kind of got it in my head at the moment that I need to go and maybe try and work on Necrons because they're so much easier, and I might be able to paint an army, hopefully,
Because they're easier.
because they're easy.
Yeah.
It's like, conceptually, I absolutely love the idea of having an orc army, and like, one of my favourite films, Mad Max, like, I would love to do something based around that, but the idea of painting a detailed horde army, like orcs are, I know I'm not going to do it.
They're one of those ones where you would have to literally take it unit by unit and just accept that it's done when it's done.
Yeah.
But like, don't try and jump in at the deep end with
No.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we got a bit of time, I'll explain to you the ideal army I'd want to make, and you'll understand why I'm not going to do it.
Oh, we missed Genes the Cult in your collection of going through the list.
Oh yeah, because I have
I did already mention
I have a 3D printed. Well, actually, no, I have 2 3D printed versions of Gene Stealer Cult.
You do have 2 3D
Yeah.
printed versions of Genes the Cult, yeah.
Because I had a version that were going to be like an Alpha Legion, a Hydra Cult, Alpha Legion, inspired force, and then I was also toying with the idea of doing Skaven. Skaven in 40k, because Skaven are one of the most epic factions that Games Workshop have ever come up with.
I did actually try with Skaven, didn't I?
Well, you painted a few little.
I
Skaven models,
painted a few there, but
which are the ones that I
Yeah.
converted on a digital conversion to give them more
But
40k
see,
stuff.
this is the thing with these. I actually enjoy. They're terrible, but I actually enjoyed painting these guys up more than when I was like test painting up armor for my sisters, because they're little rats and they're so cute and they're so simple because all it is just like a skin tone. And they wear it's almost like brown and red. That's it. So I suppose it goes back to what you were saying about NIDs.
Yeah,
They're just easy to paint.
I think as well with that, the organic paint scheme is easier to sort of get behind than
Oh god, yeah. Then painting
regimented
armour, yeah.
because it is. I mean, you can be messy with the rats, and to a degree with the xenomorph nids, you can be a bit messier with them because
Tidy up is easier.
tidy up is easier. They're organic. The shapes aren't you have this line of colour here, and that has to be sort of perfect.
The organic nature of the Skaven and your xenomorphs is definitely a positive in the sense that they're also easy to paint. Not just because it's not dealing with straight lines or that it's easy. You can be messier. Because I don't mean. Yes and no. I still think you shouldn't be messy if you're doing it well. What it lends itself to is dry brushing, and contrast paints,
Yeah.
which makes the painting process so much more bearable for those who are like me who hate the damn thing.
Because contrast doesn't go well on like flat panels and things.
No, it's a lot harder to work with. I have managed to make it work on certain things. It's a lot harder. Yeah.
So it also depends on the contrast, because like the red contrast goes really well on just about everything. But like,
it depends how quick and how smooth you are at the brush application, whether you can get it to work. It's quite hard. Or if you're a little bit clever, you can use them with an airbrush. If you just want the flat colour, if you don't care about the actual effect of contrast. So like on armour panels on vehicles, it works quite well. Yeah, but that's another topic for another time. John, I think it's your turn to
I think it probably is.
Have your say on the whole topic, really.
So yeah, I mean,
How extensive is your list that you like either started or you've got?
so let's get.
It's probably easy to say what you don't have.
If to a certain degree, it is easy to say what I don't have. So I came into it on Kill Team.
Right,
That was where I came into the hobby, and that lends itself very nicely to. And this is where I realised I had the problem of I want to try lots of different things, because I got the Kill Team starter box. That's Krieg and
Commandos.
Krieg and Commandos. It's the Orc Commandos. Tried them out, and I was like, they're fun. But I can see over there's some Custodes. Oh, don't try Custodes. And I tried Custodes, and I tried Mechanicus in there. So if I just go on like Kill... Oh, and then the Intercession team came out, which was where I first tried out doing Space Marines. Not necessarily my proudest moment, but I do remember that I did a game on Tabletop Sim with the Intercession squad after the rules had just come out, and was like, I'm going to go get myself some Space Marines. So I proceeded to drive to Bristol after playing it. Bought a box in one place. They were like, they didn't have the other box I needed, so I went to a different shop and bought the other box that I needed, drove back, made 6 Marines, and I was like, done. Which were fun, and those were done as Crimson Fists, and then that was when we then started to kind of, have discussions, get together to do games, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do Crimson Fists as a big thing. And then found that the issue I had with them is they were kind of like Ultramarines, but light. They were like they're like trying to do a level of not just regular Marines with them.
Yeah.
Was where the issue then came in, because there wasn't, and like, funny enough, the suggestion that you had of like, oh, they should go around kind of like this like very kind of crenellation castle style, but that sounds amazing. That's going to require a lot of effort in terms of doing.
This was before we had the 3D printer access, wasn't it?
This was or around the time of kind of 3D printer access, and I was like, I'm going to have to go and like sit and do a load of files.
Yeah.
A company has now come together and actually made literally the files I wanted from the very beginning. That's not at all frustrating to just suddenly get now, but maybe I wouldn't be here if they had come out sooner.
Are you saying you might have had a 2,000 point Crimson Fist army by now?
Who knows? Who knows what would have happened if that particular thing had come out at that time?
I think you were dreaming.
I am dreaming. So then in terms of like actual armies that I built up a good force for, I did Tau, but using entirely printed, because I was like, those rules sound really good fun. Played a couple of games of those, was like, oh, I don't really get to do anything in the psychic phase. So then I went and did Grey Knights.
Sorry, can we just have a moment for the psychic phase?
A moment for the psychic phase. Played Grey Knights. They are really good fun. In 9th. And then kind of 10th rolled around, and my poor Grey Knights got literally their knees like shattered, their legs cut off, and apparently all of their psychic just pulled out of them.
And their hammers stolen.
I felt the same when they did the same to my Thousand Sons.
Yeah.
And at least you kept a level of like psychic.
Yeah, they do have a level of psychic. It's not what it used to be.
Grey Knights feel like they play like. First of all, they took my hammers.
They did take it out.
They took
Like
my hammers.
4.
They took my hammers. And I will not forgive them for taking my hammers. But it didn't have the feel of what I wanted. But essentially, those two scrapped, went away.
You had quite a bit of Grey Knights as well, didn't you?
I had a Nemesis Dread Knight.
It wasn't fully painted, was it? It was mostly base coated.
Yeah, it was mostly base coated. I've still got the characters because I spent a load of time actually painting up the characters to a good level of detail.
Oh, yeah, they were.
And so then scrapped them. Went to an. Oh no! It was so. Where did it go from there? Because after them was where the Raptors came in. Because when we were at the person I was staying with for Warhammer Fest 22.
That was only last year, wasn't it?
Was it only last year?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it wasn't last year. But we're basically like, oh, we'll both get a combat patrol. We're going to be meeting at this place again. Both make up a combat patrol. That was where I did the Raptors, which are based off of the Blood Angels combat patrol. And kind of, I did them as this is a combat patrol. I basically just did the box, and so they are done, barring putting texture paint on the base.
Mm.
And now, kind of since then, I was like, oh, I don't actually mind painting Marines when they're like that, but I like the ability to try and play lots of different armies from one army, which is where the Deathwatch came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the issue that I have when it comes to painting is I really, really enjoy painting.
Yeah.
But I don't like painting the same thing.
You like to...
So hence why I've got, these guys, who, the Deathwatch that I have been painting and I've been enjoying painting, but I'll do, pour a load of effort into doing, as I did Deathwatch Scouts. I did them with, custom heads, and, kind of, other than that, kept keeping them fairly plain. And then did some Terminators. Hit the point where I've done kind of those two, and I was like, I don't dislike the painting, I just need to paint something else. Which is where I was like, I've got a load of, actual Tau, because I thought I was going to do Towers of Alarmy. They've sat there, and actually... The thing that got me to start painting my Tau was I felt bad because I bought them all as gifts, and I was like, well, I've got to paint, these have sat here for a year and a bit now, I've got to put some paint onto them. And that was really good. So the Delphish down there, that had sat there for a year, and then I just basically was just I'm going to paint this Devilfish. And having something where it's just I'm just going to do one thing really helps. Or it was Devilfish and a couple of Crisis Suits. Did those, and then I can move to something else. Looking at then for Epic, the Iron Warriors, it's okay, that gives me something else. Or I have looked at it and been what if I did Chaos as well? Actual Chaos for 10th. And I think that's the kind of my Faction Paralysis element comes into. I want to try a bunch of different things to kind of see how they feel to play, but also I need to keep rotating something around to be the current project element, because sticking with any one thing for too long means that I can't get I just need to have a rotation of being using different paints, using different techniques to keep kind of working through. Which did lead into the thought I had when you were chatting.
Me?
Yeah. Give a go at one of your sisters.
Would you?
Yeah.
Do you want to...
We don't need to make a decision right now, but
yeah. We can definitely talk about that. I definitely would appreciate having someone, because what oh, that wasn't English. Whenever I've seen something that you've painted up, I'm whoa, that sort of level is I want to be there, where it's an in between of this Jamie, because the thing is with you is you paint really well, but you hate painting, so all of the stuff that you paint is in very short supply, whereas you have lots of things. You enjoy painting, so you paint things up quickly, where it's just kind of and you just kind of paint it to get it done.
Yeah.
Which is completely fair, by the way. That is completely fair.
100%.
Like, I completely understand why you do it as well, because when I was test painting my sister's armour on some old Marines that Jamie had, that was what I was doing, was I was just licking it on just to get it on there, just to see how it looked. And that's not really where I want to get. So, I mean, if you could paint up one of my models in the scheme that I wanted, so I can actually see it done, that would be incredible.
Especially things like, it's another one why I like, adding to the list of factions I'd consider, was like custodies, because they have the same thing of like the idea of you can pour a lot of effort into each individual model. I don't know whether they're, to a certain degree their playstyle appeals, but I am kind of at a stage where I'm like, no, I need to actually actively limit the amount that I'm going to try and do. So hence why I think I'm at the stage where I've got the right level of rotation, but being like having random things to kind of throw in there to test out. So being like, essentially, when I am bored with painting one thing, it moves on to the next.
I'll tell you what you could do, is every now and then I will just give you a random unit from one of my various armies to paint.
Do you know, I don't think that would be the worst thing, honestly, like having something to rotate into the cycle. So I feel like, and I've gone back and forth because this guy here is another one of mine, and Sons of the Phoenix. Yeah, go for it. Sons of the Phoenix are ones that I've looked at multiple times for doing, and actually if I was going to do them, I'd do them all out of Black Templars, because they have a very Templary feel to them. But I know that I then have to go, okay, I have a whole load of things I need to do, and I can't necessarily always play them how I want to, which is why I think, I am sticking with Deathwatch as my Marine faction, regardless of what happens. I'm fascinated to see what happens when it comes down to the rumours of the Codex.
The rumours I've heard is there ain't a codex.
That's what I mean. That is interesting, because at the moment, if I go, I want to go and play, I can take my Deathwatch and I can play them as Dark Angels, for example, and I can take a bunch of Dark Angels units and paint them up in Deathwatch, and then it's like Deathwatch Dark Angels.
I'm sorry. I just remembered the meme that we made in our group chat of where's my Codex GW. Can I ask a question about this little guy here? Why is his arm purple?
That's what they have. The Sons of Phoenix have one arm that is in purple. There might be a lore reason, I don't know.
That's very interesting. And one of his kneecaps is... Look, one of his kneecaps purple as well.
That was contrast paint. Nagos purple on that.
It works weirdly well with the gold.
Do you know anything about them as a?
I actually don't know. I've heard of them, but I don't actually know.
They're one of the the factions that came about with the Indomitus. Was it the Indomitus? What was it called when all the Primaris ones popped up? And it was the Indomitus Crusade, but there was a name for like the founding.
Yeah.
Was it the Indomitus Founding?
No, Ultima Founding.
And they rocked up and they were like, "We are Sons of Rogal Dawn."
Oh.
But we're known as the Sons of the Phoenix, and we're all about perfection. And our colour scheme is purple and gold and white.
Ring any bells?
Emperor's Children.
Sons of the Phoenix.
Sons of the Phoenix.
The Phoenician.
Oh.
Much like how Salamanders suddenly had a successor chapter that were known as the... Oh god, no, they're the Covenant of Fire, who worship the Emperor like a god, and are all about religious and holy texts and holy fire. Definitely from Vulcan. Yep, 100% from Vulcan.
Yeah.
Just the fire just sells it. It's definitely them.
Definitely fire.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with burning books or anything like that.
I think there's another one, but I can't remember what.
There are a couple.
There's a load where it's like definitely eyeing up Cole suspiciously, being like, "Where'd you get those gene seeds, Cole? Where they coming from, Cole?" Be like,
We're sons of rebooting Gilliman. We love skinning people alive.
I'm just saying, the Loyalists need a psychic legion that isn't the Great Knights.
But The Grey Knights need Psychic is what the Grey Knights need now.
Psychic needs to come back. They did not need to get rid of the Psychic phase. Whole nother video, but I can't help myself.
Or like, yeah, you're right. It is a whole nother video.
Yeah.
We could literally have a whole video on the Psychic phase alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it, like, I think as new kind of factions come out, or as new things come out for the kind of factions, like that, there is an element of that faction paralysis. But I think the way that I'm trying to overcome it, at least my element of it, is having a faction that I can play as everything. Which is why, when we first had our talks about legions, my initial thing was, I'm going to play World Eaters. Because I can just run across the board and hit things, and then it's the simplest gameplay in the world. But as we set about trying to, like, using the rules more like detachments, playing something like Iron Warriors, I can be like, well, these are the Iron Warriors that are very aggressive, these are the Iron Warriors that are a little bit sneaky, and these are the Iron Warriors that use tanks more.
Yeah, that's a little hint when we get to the epic stuff. That,
Sorry, spoilers.
that we are making a few modifications just to make the game flow a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give a bit more flexibility to it.
Yeah, because although we love the rule system, there are a few little things that we want to change.
Yeah. And that's also then why I was looking at them from a like, I'm not doing it, by the way. I'm just putting it out there. I have said to myself, I am limiting myself to what I have, and then once that's done, I can think about other things. But looking at them as a way to do like full blown CSM in 10th would be going Iron Warriors. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen people do Iron Berserkers, which are really good fun. I've seen loads of conversions that people have done of, they've literally just taken Death Guard models and de-nurgled them.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That looks like it take a lot of effort, though.
Yes, that would take a lot of effort. Although, I
would just grab the Heresy Mark III kits and call it done.
well, yeah. But I did see one, and if I can find it, I'll send it over. But it was a conversion that somebody had done of one of the Plague Marines, and instead of like the pussy kind of chest, they turned it into like the chest being like a furnace. It was a very cool style to like take that idea of like the maw and make it basically into like a big iron furnace on the on the
Yeah,
stomach.
that's cool.
But yes, I agree with you that like, and I think Thousand Suns might be a stretch, but not an impossible stretch.
No, I could do that. Just have a little mini sorcerer guy with a bunch of automata marines, basically.
Yeah, like,
Relatively easy to do.
oh no, that's a really good idea.
God.
It's fine. This is a discussion of Faction Paralysis. What is it? What would the discussion be without adding to it?
Yeah, well, at least you come to the conclusion that you're going to try and keep it.
I've got to finish what I've got before I move on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not certain that's going to happen for me, but I'm going to try.
Well,
So-
yeah.
Are you sticking with Death Guard for now then?
Deathwatch is going to be your sort of prime.
For full-blown games of 10th, Deathwatch is staying put. For Legions Imperialis, it's going to be Iron Warriors. Alongside it, there's definitely going to be some Tower thrown in there, because I have found, like, so this, all of the red that was done on this was done just using Contrast Paint.
It's a very, like, nice red as well, isn't it?
It is a lovely red. It is the Army Painters Slaughter Red or something like that.
Oh.
But that was a goal to. Sorry to call you out like this, Joe. But that was a call. That was an attempt to channel your energy of what is the minimum number of paints that I can use on it.
Yeah.
Just to try and save myself sanity. So like the black. So it's a black base coat with then a heavy dry brush over everything. Followed then by, so all the blacks are done just using Black Templar, all the reds are done using that Slaughter Red, all the whites are just done with a, It's a blinding, I think it's like blinding light contrast, and then like a bit of extra white on top of it.
Did you airbrush with white, or did you use something else?
No, it was a dry brush of light grey.
That's what I meant.
over it. Yeah.
Yeah. That is one of my favourite things to do. That is probably the only thing I actually enjoy properly doing with painting is dry brushing. And just being like, chow, 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 all over the...
I would agree 100% with the small exception of I started to do that with my Iron Warriors.
Right.
With my Legions Iron Warriors.
Your tiny Legions Iron Warriors. Why? Okay. Were you drunk?
No, but I did learn. I learned that was a really bad idea for my sanity. As I was there, picking up 5 Marines. Brush, 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 brush. Turn them over. Brush, 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 brush.
Heart.
Put them down. Pick up the next set of 5. Brush, 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 brush. And I got a way through, and I was sat with my partner who looked across and I just kept occasionally just like lying back on the sofa, being like, I want to end it all now. So then the next day I was like, why am I doing this? Sat there, grabbed the airbrush, chucked a load of paint in it, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's done now. Why did I do this to myself? And then proceeded to just do the rest of them that way.
Yeah, I've got to the philosophy now. If I can't do it with an airbrush or a dry brush or a contrast, I'm not doing it.
That's fair.
I did sit there. You can probably see on certain bits. I did sit there and do the entirety of that with a edge highlight, and that was the thing. I don't mind it when I do it on one thing. I will edge highlight a thing, but I won't edge highlight an army.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think there's a lot to be said that you don't have to. You really don't have to.
Yeah.
No.
I genuinely could not be bothered. So even on my characters, but the ones that I should take the extra effort on, I don't. But I can very much appreciate someone who would take the effort for just the characters, but then do the rest as purely battle ready.
I will say I have found a very nice way of doing black for Deathwatch, doing a very cold black, using just dry brushing that creates the effect of edge highlighting on it.
Oh yeah, there's lots of ways you can sort of mimic highlighting on it. Like my Doomsday arc that I painted up for the Necrons.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I got comments on my Instagram and stuff saying, how did you do the highlights? I didn't, dry brushed it.
Yeah.
Simple.
Didn't have to do any work.
I have seen, and it's one that I think that I'm very tempted to do. Continuing on with Deathwatch, is I saw somebody who's done, so they've done a army that is dual purpose between both Blood Angels and Dark Angels. The idea of kind of like their like homebrew little chapter is that it's like a combination of both gene seeds.
Okay.
But so the armour is black, but it's like essentially edge highlighted in red. So it's like they're black armour with red edges.
Oh, that's cool.
It looks genuinely such a beautiful army, and I've been following it for a while. But I was thinking, for the Deathwatch, is whenever I do things like Blood Angels, so that I can have, here's my Sanguinary Guard in the Deathwatch, is they would be black armour with a red highlight. Oh, these are my Dark Angels units, they're going to be black armour with a green highlight around the edge.
That's an amazing idea. The only thing I'm going to point out straight away is you're going to get vilified online for putting Sanguinary Guard in the Deathwatch.
I've got Scouts in my Deathwatch.
Yeah, but no one cares about Scouts.
Yeah, that's fair.
People care about their Sanguinary Guard. By the way, I don't. He can do what he likes, but I know some of you will.
We're gonna have the elite of the Dark Angels.
Well, which ones?
In the bone armour.
Deathwing Knights?
Deathwing Knights. Yeah, they're gonna be in there.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll annoy a few
in
Dark
black armour.
Angels players.
I'm gonna have some Deathwatch Death Wolves.
Deathwatch Death Wolves?
I don't have some side wolves in there.
That sounds like either a really
Deathwatch Thunderwolf Cavalry?
Deathwatch Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Now that sounds pretty cool.
Although I do also have some. I did see somebody who's done some fun conversions, which are Space Marines riding the Raptors from the Saurian, from the Seraphons.
Yeah.
Having those as Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Why not?
Why not?
Why
Yeah.
not?
Why not?
There is literally there is an old Rogue Trader model that is just Space Marine riding a dinosaur, and I kind of want to channel that level of energy for the order.
There are some cool stuff you can do with stuff, conversions and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. For me, the conversions is where the fun is. So
Mm.
go crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is when it comes down to the forces that you want to do, your faction paralysis comes from conversion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make the craziest things I can, and I always feel limited by what I've got access to.
And what is your craziest though?
The craziest I've done, or the craziest I would want to do.
I know what the craziest you've done is, I think.
What do you think the craziest I've done is?
He's in the shelf. He's on one of the shelves, on the bottom shelf of that cabinet.
Yeah, what you mean my
Your demon prints.
my vampires?
What was a Magnus
Yeah,
that
my
you
vampires.
converted into a demon prince? Is it a demon prince?
No, that's meant to be Magnus.
Yeah.
Was that originally Magnus?
No, that was just a three. No, so I've got a model in there that's basically a
Can
sort
we
of
get him out?
No, not for now. 'Cause
I think he is huge.
he's a little bit broken as well. I fixed him. It's basically just a fantasy vampire model 3D file I found online. I rigged it all up so I could repose it. Grabbed a load of extra files like armor and stuff, which I then meticulously added to this model. Put a crown on his head and everything. Printed it off. Obviously upscaled it to Magnus proportions. Painted it all up. Green stuffed hair on top of it and a beard and like hair like this. All over it, and then basically run it as Magnus. So the entire army is this. The idea behind the army was that it was like the next stage on from where my Space Marines were, because the Space Marines were originally a successor chapter of the Blood Angels, and then the idea was that over time they got a little bit too blood crazy and got a little bit too close to their psychic abilities, and it started to corrupt them a bit more, and eventually they turned into an approximation of the Thousand Suns. So they were like they were my kind of what if Blood Angels went chaos, and they sort of become these literal warp vampires.
Yeah.
And although my version of Magnus isn't technically a Primarch, I run him as Magnus because it's cool.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's probably one of the craziest.
Yeah, it's probably the craziest one I've done.
I remember you being at your desk and making him, because we had only just gotten together, I think, when you'd started that army. So that has always like kind of stuck with me.
I still love the Thousand Suns, and if genuinely, if I could be bothered to paint them, I would like to redo that army.
Yeah.
Whether I'd redo it like that or whether I'd actually do it as a Thousand Suns army, I don't know. But again, I like to make a bit crazy conversions, so if I did, it definitely wouldn't be a standard Thousand Suns army. But the thing with Thousand Suns with the Thousand Suns, actually, I didn't get bored with them. My problem was there are not enough units.
No.
As soon as I'd made basically one of every unit. I'm like, well, I'm done now. It only took me it took me a couple months.
It's not a Mutaleth Vortex Beast in there.
That's the only thing I haven't got yet. I had already designed the file to print for it. I just never bothered.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, well, then I'm done. All I'm doing is rinsing, repeating the same thing over and over again.
Rhino. Predator.
Don't want those things. But at the time I didn't. And now that I've had time's moved on, I probably would. But so with them, actually, it was actually not the painting that was the problem. It was just the lack of units for the army that put me off.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I'm a massive fan of the Psychers in 40k. I like magic and stuff like that. My run in Baldur's Gate 3 currently, which has already come up several times in our conversations today. I run a wizard, like a full wizard, no dipping into anything else. Definitely lean into the more manipulative side of things. But yeah, so it's an army that would definitely suit me if it had more stuff to it.
Yeah.
And one day if Games Workshop decide to release more units for it, maybe I'd think about it. The realistic realistically though, I'd probably use it as the springboard to make the army I'd want to make. But that would be very difficult to do.
Because I still don't think we're quite over faction paralysis yet, are we?
Not with me, no. I'm not out of faction paralysis at all.
No.
I'm going to try the Necron thing and see if I can see if I can motivate myself to paint that and keep that going. Because I think that's the only army I'm going to be able to paint and not get too annoyed about having to paint it.
Yeah.
Well, depends. Again, the problem with the Necrons is I'm limited on what I can convert with it. There's a certain level that I can't get to with them. I've done quite well, I think, actually, with what I've got. Because I've converted as much as I can feel like I can with them. So again, you will see eventually with my Necron army, very very little of it is straight out of the box. They're reposed or new heads. I've literally sliced heads up and replaced faceplates and stuff like that. And I've added little 3D printed effects from places as well, just to spice things up a bit. But that's as far as I can get with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a custom character out of the Luminor Zaros model.
Yeah, you have.
Which I quite like. It's a bit different. Running around with 2 swords rather than a big spear.
Yeah.
And custom head replacement and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see whether the lack of conversion opportunity kills it for me, which it probably will. But if it's an army I can paint, at least if I can get an army painted, that's something.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to land, and I don't know that I'll ever find an army that I will ever want to stick to.
Yeah.
I think the only way that will happen is if I can somehow work out how to build the army
Up.
of my dream, the one that sat in my brain that I still haven't figured out how to do.
Yeah.
Which is
basically, I've got my biggest thing is I want to make something that's totally and utterly unique to me, that doesn't exist in 40k but could exist in 40k. So I want to create basically a Xenos faction, and the idea is that it's it's inspired by some stuff that I want to do in my own, because I'm very very side tangent to this, is that I have started to write my own science fiction stuff for my own personal fun, really. And one of the main species that I'm kind of working with in that, I'd like to do a version of it in 40k, and that is basically an alien species that has mastered biosynthetic technologies. So not quite like tyrannies, like they're not animals, but they use biological technologies. So they might use living armor, armor that when you shoot it, it heals. Their vehicles, instead of having cables running through them, have literal nerve systems running through them. So they're not alive, but they're organic. But they still have metallic elements, particularly on their ships and their vehicles.
Yeah.
One of the big inspirations for that part of the design, with the sinews going through the armor plates, actually comes from Baldur's Gate with the Illithid. There's a particular scene in Baldur's Gate where there's, I won't be going to specifics because I know John hasn't got to this point in the game, and many of you may now have done it, but there's a point where you can find basically, you're inside a structure, like a castle, not quite a castle, but a tower, and in between the walls of the tower are organic materials and tendrils all the way through the castle tower that allows the Illithids to see what's going on inside it. And that just gave me this idea of, well, what if you had a spaceship that instead of using copper wiring has this organic, nervous systems going through it, so that you could control the whole thing from one place, see everything all at once.
That's an interesting
The
concept.
proto-molecule from the Expanse series, this biotech that kind of mixes organics and machinery together. The alien race from Independence Day that have those sort of biosuits that they kind of sit inside of, kind of mixing all those ideas together. The collectors from Mass Effect.
Yeah.
You know, I've done a run of Mass Effect not too recently, and I ran around in the collector armor because I just thought this is really cool. I'm wearing a second skin. It's really cool, and I can picture this armor when you get hit by it. It just heals. So it's a really cool concept. I have no idea how on earth I would do it. I've trawled through Warhammer's catalogue of stuff. I'm like, how would I do it? What army would I run it as? You know, I had this. I've had several thoughts. You know, could I run it as a reflavoured Necron list? You know, with sort of going down the sort of Mass Effect kind of robot zombies, but led by more powerful living things inside suits, or doing Eldar maybe because they're lithe and quick, but they also have the Wraith suits which could act as the biosuits.
Yeah.
Or doing Death Guard where you mix a bit of the two, so you have the biosuit wearing Xenos, but then the zombies have got like nanites that have gone into their brains and turned them into, you know, puppet zombies essentially of the Xenos race. Stuff like that. There's so many options there.
Yeah, there are some good options actually.
And to be fair, with something like that, I could, a bit like yourself, just say, I'll do them all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I could just run any of those armies. It doesn't matter. I would just design them so that they fit within those armies, but they're all one army.
Yeah.
Which to me is very appealing because it means I can build up this super massive army while also making separate armies. But there's the massive issue of how on earth I would do it.
Also, do you think that you might run the risk of, like, after it's been in your head for so long, if you finally get it out and you start, like, doing it, you start designing it or whatever, do you think you might run the risk of then hating it?
That's always a risk.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. That's a risk whether I design it myself or I just buy a box of Space Marines. It makes no difference. There's always a chance you won't like what you meant and end up with.
Yeah, that is true, I suppose, yeah.
That's always that's something you can never escape from.
And you've got the bonus fun element of how you're going to paint it at the end.
Yeah, and
Well,
again,
it'll probably be a John, you know you love me.
the painting side of it is definitely the bit that makes me cringe. I did think that if I was to do it and I found some way of making it, the way I would paint it would be, because it's all organic, I can rely on contrast and dry brushing, and I'd actually probably borrow the collector colour scheme from Mass Effect, that sort of organic-y, orangey look, because it would be really quick.
Yeah.
Because it would only be a couple of dry brushes and probably some kind of wash of orange, and I'd be done.
What I have in my head is not that colour scheme, and it would not be as quick, but it would look good.
Yeah.
Are you volunteering, Don? I'm joking.
Designs it, I'll yeah.
Careful, don't. You've got you on camera.
You
If
do
I
it.
design it, you'll paint it.
Oh no.
But yes, that is what I would ultimately want to do. But I haven't worked out how I would ever do it. Not without excessive learning to green stuff. I mean, my green stuff is pretty good, but it's not that good. And I haven't found a line of models that would work. The closest I could think of was the Seraphon. Because of the armour plate, I could kind of imagine it like, instead of doing like chitin or chitin, like Tyrann is more like scales.
Yeah. So that would be. Sorry, I'm just trying to pass that through my head.
So my initial thought was to like take the head off, hollow it out a little bit to turn it into like a suit, so that you could stick a smaller head on the inside.
I do think that runs the risk of just looking like somebody who's taken the head off of a fursuit.
There's potentially.
Why did you look at me when you said
What did you think?
fursuit?
No reason.
I'll never forgive you for starting that. You know that.
Yeah, that was the only thing I could think of at the time, or over the last however long, that would even come close to what I was thinking. But I haven't managed to figure it out yet.
I think, in conclusion, we're all a little bit boned when it comes to faction paralysis.
Well, like, you have a
Apart from
consistency.
me.
You have a consistency where if it's wolfy, you'll...
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, Jamie has put some seeds in my brain about doing Emperor's Children one day as
I mean,
an army.
you've got the advantage that at some point this edition, they're definitely going to get a big box release.
Yep.
Yep.
And
That scares me.
as horrible as they are, I just think they would be like a really cool... And I definitely think I would enjoy painting them up.
I think
Because the colour scheme is awesome.
I think it'll really depend on what approach they take
Yeah.
with them. Because it could be that, yes, you say straightforward colour scheme,
Or...
it could, like, I think the risk that's run is the chaos trim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The madness of the chaos trim.
But again, you can do what I did with my Alpha Legion, just go, do you know what, I'm not doing modern version, I'm just going to use all the old armour marks.
Would they look as
Chris.
Emperor's Children? Yeah, probably.
Especially with a few 3D printed shoulder pads that have enough trim to make them look a bit more special,
Yeah, it's fair.
just not with all the chaosy, spiky stuff.
I know that my idea for if I was ever going to do Emperor's Children is a line of madness, so I'm not going to do it.
Let's not even talk about the idea I had about doing a legion of loyalist traitors.
Legion of Illustrators, that slight madness, not as... My idea
Great, but no.
My idea requires me to somehow find a way of altering the text on Grey Knights.
Oh god, yeah, I remember you saying.
Why?
Because I want to do Slanesh corrupted Grey Knights after the story of the Silver Knight of Slanesh. And it's all Grey Knights, but instead of their, like, purity, doom, apparently, they have that written across a load of their chest. It's just, like, Slaneshi related things. I'm not sure what it would be, but fill in the gaps.
Orgy.
The first thing...
We need a redacted over Joe's statement there.
The first thing that came into my head when you were like Slanesh based thing across her chest, I just thought of the word slay.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's a little bit more PG.
Things
More
like that.
safer than anything I was thinking.
Things like that.
That's
But that's why I'm like, at least I can look at that and go,
No.
that is my idea. No.
Yeah, I've got plenty of ideas that I've said no to myself on.
Yeah. But maybe one day.
Maybe one
I'd be
day.
very interested to see if, like, somebody could make a 3D printable file that has, like, just the alphabet of Grey Knight of things to put on Grey
I mean,
Knights.
logically,
It's conceivable.
I can see how to do it, but I'd probably have to literally go to somebody, design this for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know enough about Blender I could do it if I had the basic file for the armour already done. I might be able to actually work out how to do the configurable
Yeah.
panel. I think I could do that. I know enough. It's whether you want me to go to that effort and then have to build it, paint it, and do it all. Because it would take a lot of effort. But yes, I think I could do it.
So L's safe mostly from Faction Paralysis.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna stick with the wolves, but the thing is, the sister wolves, their lore is not done. I have no idea what will happen when their lore is done, and I'm no longer writing them. So
Just do what GW did with the Horus Heresy. Just keep writing it.
I mean, I
For
will.
about 20 years.
Get 55 books deep, and then when you're in, just rewrite it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's already had 4 rewrites. No,
I'll save the
3.
rewrites till when you get bored.
Yeah.
So, Joe, safe or not safe yet?
I think it's safe for now.
Safe for now.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty
I think
happy
you're pretty
with.
comfy.
I'm pretty
yeah.
happy with
You're in a
this.
good position. You've got an army that's relatively recent that you're quite happy with, and
Yeah.
you know what you're doing with. So
Yeah, and I have enough units that if I want to make things, I can expand, and they have enough difference between them to
Yeah.
be
Sure.
enjoyable. Because that's another thing with Space Marines, is that they are all dudes in power armor.
they are.
Yep.
John, safe or not?
Teetering.
You've got a potential solution.
I have at least a rotation in place now, and maybe I just start taking people's stuff and painting it when I feel myself feeling the draw, the call to build something else. I'll be like, guys, give me something to paint so that I don't make another thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know where I am.
Jamie?
I am in no way safe.
You're never safe.
I'm in no way safe.
No.
I've got a potential thing that might stave me off for a little while if I can paint up a Necron army. I imagine I won't get the whole way through. I might.
Drakari needs some paint.
Those Drakari need some paint, those Votan need some paint, those Alpha Legion need some paint.
But I think, at least in Legions, we're relatively set. That is actually the thing I quite like about Legions is, in the nice way for it, there's not many options.
No, although I'm looking at adding options.
Yeah, I know. Just cause problems.
Yeah, but in fairness, I will have a 5,000 point army.
You will have a
Yeah.
you will have a 5,000 point army.
By the time you see this, I will have a 5,000 point Legions army. So if I then start another Legions army, it doesn't feel bad.
No. Yeah.
And also, like with Legions, there's less option for conversion. So like,
Yeah.
it is like you're kind of more set.
It's kind of more straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Unless what?
You know, write an entire new rule set for a new army.
Yeah, I mean, that is my intention, but it's not quite the same as converting an army in the same way. Yeah.
They're also smaller. You can't get away with the same level of conversion.
No, trust me, I tried.
Madness.
I might have done at least one weapon swap.
How? What, on an infantry?
Might have changed the weapon on one of the commanders.
From what to what?
From a sword to an axe.
How would you tell?
I know, John. I know.
I already had this conversation with him, John, and he was adamant back then, so I wouldn't even waste your breath on it.
Okay.
It's done.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's even painted.
I just... Nah, anyway.
Yes.
Anyway.
I think when it comes to painting, Legions is the only time I've ever actually been able to paint an army and not hate it. So quickly. Yeah. This is why Legions may become a very favourite game of mine, for the sheer fact that I don't have to worry about painting it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to starting to get some proper paint down on my... Like, I've hit the base level. It's now the washes and then the details. I'm actually quite looking forward to getting the details down.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you end up with.
I'm going with a sparing but recognisable element of hazard stripes. I am not hazard striping every single Marine. Mostly.
You're not doing it right.
Oh, I'm going to at least do every shoulder with a hazard stripe.
Unless what you do is every other Space Marine shoulder is black, yellow, and then you just line them up.
Perfection.
Cool. Right. Well, I think that's probably the end of our discussion, really, when it comes to faction paralysis. I don't think there's much more we can go into that without dipping into realms of obscurity and
Ruining other videos.
Well, actually destroying our motivation for this hobby. So, I think we'll call that part of our video there. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, 2 of us are pretty safe. 1 of us possibly doomed, and I'm completely screwed.
I think I'm telling myself that I'm safe, but realistically, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm just realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, this is delusion versus acceptance.
So, before we leave, we are going to pass on to a final new little segment, or to close out our videos. So, we will see you in just a moment. Welcome back. So, in our final segment today, we are looking at some various characters from the realms of 40k, and just going to have a a little discussion on what we think about them. I mean, these are all characters that we've picked, so you can probably imagine them probably people we like to some degree, but not all of us will agree with each other. And we kind of want to have a look at like the good, the bad, and the ugly of the characters. Really, what we like about them, what we don't like about them. Do they need models in the game? Do they not? Etc. This section will be relatively short. All right, so we're not going to do an in-depth look into the characters per se. So today, our first character is going to be, and I'm going to pass over to Els here, who did our selection process very cleverly.
Yeah, I did. And the name that came out is Comrade Kurz.
Conrad Kurz, the Primarch of the Night Lords.
Yum,
who
yum, yum.
Some people refer to as the 40k Batman.
I think he's a bit too sinister to be a Batman.
Personally, I think Korax is probably closer to Batman in 40k.
Yeah, although I've not read a huge amount of
Yeah,
Korax's lore.
I've only read the one book from the Heresy that he's in, but I would say he's probably more Batman than Night Lords.
Well, you put that name in.
I know I did. I don't know. I like him a lot. Well, I don't know why.
Joe, what? Take this away from just do you like them or do you not? Let's make this a little bit more of a morality question.
Oh God! Don't ask me that.
Is Conrad Kurz, let's assume that he's not part of the Chaos factions, just before the whole heresy business, was he evil?
Like,
Yes.
kinda, yeah.
But in more of a like a subtle way rather than. Do you really?
Okay, but let's discuss the point here, right? He doesn't believe he's evil. Okay?
No, but most
And-
psychopaths don't.
Yeah,
Most
but
psychopaths don't.
he's not a psychopath because he knows what he does is wrong, but what he does is for the greater good.
The
which-
greater good. Sorry.
You know, the whole concept of him doing what he does, and he said this in novels that he does the bad things so that he can save lives.
But he do from my favourite interaction. He didn't try anything else.
No, but then is that not potentially just the ability of the Primarch to just contemplate in his own mind, is this the quickest path to success?
The question was not was he the fastest or the most efficient Primarch? Because 100% evil, he was still evil.
Depends on your definition of evil, isn't it?
I mean, I think the actions largely speak for themselves, don't they?
I mean, the actions in and of themselves are very dark and morbid. One could consider them war crimes. But yet, when you're talking about the scale,
One would consider them war crimes.
if you think about the scale of 40k and the kind of threats that they're up against, is slaughtering a few thousand people to keep tens of millions in control, to then potentially stop an invasion from a hive fleet, worth it? And is in that case, is that evil?
But did he keep them in control? Because, after he left...
He did up until he left, yes. And I'm not saying it's an effective method long term. I'm just asking you whether he is evil for trying that method. You know, terror tactics are a thing employed by all of the legions. He just particularly favoured it.
It's very good.
And one could also argue it was his purpose. That was what he was made to do.
But generally, the legions tend to reserve their terror tactics for the enemy and not necessarily
Do
their
they?
population.
Do they now, Joe?
Well, they're supposed to.
They're supposed to. Yes, I agree with that statement.
But when does anybody in 40k does what they're supposed to do?
Well, I think part of maybe the problem that we're looking at is we're kind of assuming the Imperium is a baseline of good. Like,
Well, I'm not. I'm not suggesting that the Imperium is good at all. In fact, personally, I think the Imperium is the complete opposite. I think they're probably one of the greatest villains of the series.
Yeah.
yeah.
But in the context of viewing it from the Imperium's perspective, is Conrad's actions purely evil? And my argument would be no, it's not purely evil. Disreputable? Wrong, potentially?
Morally wrong.
Would you honestly be able to say that if you had a choice between trying to put down a rebellion on a planet the conventional way that might take you, 100 years, at which point you also know that there's an incoming hive fleet in the next 90 years, but Conrad's method will do it in 10, giving you, 80 years to prepare, rather than minus 10 years to prepare? Is that not the lesser of the two evils?
But was Conrad's method sustainable across,
long term? Probably not. But I'm not asking you about whether his method is maintainable. I'm asking whether his actions are evil in isolation. Do you consider the Ultramarines evil?
Oh.
Do you consider the Space Wolves evil?
No.
Two factions that have massacred entire human populations because of an order given to them by the Emperor, or perceived to be from the Emperor. The Space Wolves massacred the entire population of Prospero, human, mortal, innocent children, and Space Marine alike. The Ultramarines massacred and destroyed an entire city for the sole purpose of proving a point.
Denial is a river in Egypt.
Are those factions evil?
The factions on a whole may not necessarily...
Deeper than 40k,
I mean,
that's the real answer.
The factions on a whole, from the Imperium point of view, may not be, but the actions that they have done are.
Yeah. So an evil action, but does that make them evil?
It's a morality question. There's not going to be a right or a wrong answer on this one.
No. Yeah, I'm not expecting there to be a right or wrong. I'm literally playing devil's advocate here.
I don't...
Because your first initial thought is they're evil, they're bad. There's no redeeming qualities, but I think there are.
I think, conceptually, what's quite nice with 40k is they play with that idea of there is no,
right.
There is no good and bad.
Yeah.
A lot of things play it as a lot of things in the past play it as good and bad being two isolated things, but I think we're generally moving to an understanding in media, which is quite nice, that everything is sort of levels of grey, and
You're telling me this is not like Star Wars, where everything is light and dark?
No, not everything is blue and red.
That is not in any way meant to be shade against Star Wars. Except all of it.
But yeah, I think it's the question stems more into how many evil acts can someone do before they're considered morally unsavable.
I think the mere fact that Conrad doesn't believe that he is evil, but he knows the things that he does is wrong, shows that somewhere he's got some sense of morality. Therefore, because he is informed of his actions, he then obviously does hold himself accountable. And I think that is better than a person who knows what they do is wrong, but spouts crap about how they're doing it for a higher purpose, whereas Conrad is doing it for
Who does
the
that
great.
remind you of, John? Maybe a certain son of Lorgar? Or maybe just Lorgar?
But do you know what? Do you know what I mean?
I was forced in that courtroom. That was a client I had to take. Do you think I'd defend him? No. I'm also looking at my Iron Warriors. They know that they're bad. They had actively guard refused to work with them because the casualties as a result of working with the Iron Warriors was so high. But they know that they were bad. They were just like, we don't care.
But I feel like the fact that Conrad takes accountability for what he does or what he's done, I think that is a redeemable quality, whether he does stuff that is evil or not. Also, he's hot, so he gets away with it. I couldn't help myself.
You can't save him.
I can save him! Conrad, I can save you. Hit me up.
Oh dear.
Anyway, yeah.
Do we like him as a character?
Yum yum.
To be fair, I've not consumed a sufficient amount of media, but I think there's I like the Night Lords. I don't know whether I like him.
Why?
I just don't. I think there's this element of both him and Sanguinius had very much the same kind of power, but they both treated it very differently.
Yep.
True.
And I don't know. There's again. If I read more around him, maybe I'd have a different opinion. I just kind of get to a certain degree, comes across a character that is edge for edge's sake.
Probably reasonably accurate.
Again, there's different interpretations, there's different writings around the character, but on the outward, from my current level of knowledge of Conrad Kurz, he does come across a little bit of edge for edge's sake.
I don't think your opinion will change much.
No.
I don't. I think from the perspective of the character as he's written, yeah, you're not wrong.
But there are fascinating characters that are in the Night Lords in general.
There are. This is true.
But I also think when you look at the Primarch's capabilities for even on his sort of homeworld, to take up that mantle of the vigilante justice is kind of a destructive, non-committal way of solving the problems that were there. If it was Gilliman, for example, he'd put in he already did do so much with the homeworld that he had. So the Primarchs are capable of solving things in ways that are more productive than just, I don't know, beat up some criminals every now and then.
I did hear a very strong counter argument against Gilliman, which was just I think it's in one of the Heresy books, but it's just a conversation where they're Gilliman can't take credit for everything. He was picked up by the highest nobility in the place, raised as a noble son. It'd be you haven't had to kind of work for the situation that you've ended up in. You've made it better, but you haven't had to work to get to it.
He definitely had the easiest start of any of the Primarchs, from my understanding. I don't think any of the others had an easy start like he did.
He got lucky.
But a lot of them worked to make their homeworld sort of dramatically better long term.
Yeah.
From Kurz's perspective, though, his method was long term. He wasn't expecting at the time to necessarily leave the planet.
Yeah,
but he the method worked based on him as a single individual going round. It still wasn't sustainable because eventually either he would die, presumably.
It didn't deal with any large scale problem. It only dealt with isolated incidents and yes, you generate this sort of terror, but arguably you don't generate any sort of...
Funny enough, actually, going back to what was initially said, the Batman comparison isn't a bad one, because Batman's thing is dealing with single individuals and not the bigger problem.
And he also knows what he does is bad.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm gonna deal with beating up this one person rather than using the millions that he spent on.
because when you look at it as a real life comparison as well, like, he's dealing with criminals, and there are already deterrents in place in real life for criminals, and crime still happens. So yes, he might be a big deterrent, but crime. Shut up. But a deterrent is never enough in any situation to fully stamp out criminal activity, because criminal activity stems from not only wanting to do criminal activity, but also in some cases desperation.
Yeah.
And so he didn't make any changes that were anything other than just punishing criminals.
I like Conrad as a character because when I like a character like that, I like to kind of psychoanalyze them. I like to get to grips with what made them that way, and the fact that he is a man who knows that he does horrible things, despicable, but can take accountability for it, can take responsibility for it, and turn around to people and be like, yeah, I know that was bad, but I did it for what I believe is a good reason, and therefore nobody else's opinion matters.
But he doesn't take accountability for it.
But he does.
He goes... He blames the planet for what he does.
Yeah.
He's like, Nostromo is this way. It's their, after I left, it's their fault that they suddenly descended back into what they were doing before.
Oh.
Even Angron was able to, organise more of a, world-changing event on his world, and he was arguably given the absolute worst, hand.
He was also the only one that didn't conquer his world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he was given the worst hand, and he was moments away from a full-scale rebellion that would have changed tides on his world.
He was in the rebellion.
He was
He
about
would have died.
He was about to lose. Okay, right. Well, the last thing I will say about Kurz is you're talking about him in the scope of him being a leader, as a planetary governor, and his method of governance being terrible, and I don't necessarily disagree with you in any way, shape or form, even while playing devil's advocate and trying to push the point. I don't believe he was a good governor in any way, shape or form. I don't think methods would ever have worked, and that makes sense. But actually looking at him in the context of what he was intended for, he was intended as a terror commander, a war commander, not as a governor, not as a leader. Not in that way, anyway. So in the context of Conrad being a military commander who specialises in terror tactics...
He did his job.
He is very effective at what he does, and that does not make him evil. When you're talking about war, especially in wars where you're talking about the potential of genocide on a species scale, a character like that could be argued to be necessary. And that's why I don't think his existence or his mindset is evil in and of itself.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think his mindset is flawed.
It's definitely flawed, but it all depends on context.
Yeah.
If I was... Again, I'm going to use the Tyranids as an example because they're the great existential threat of 40k. Would I rather have Gilliam at my side, or would I rather have Kurz?
Don't make me choose between them.
I would rather have Kurz, because I know he's going to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Gilliman will do it efficiently.
No, Gilliman might fail, because he will try to do it the most efficient way possible and try and save lives where he can. Kurz will get the job done no matter what. And when you're talking about a threat like something like the Tyranids that literally threaten the very existence of organic life in the universe, I'd rather have the blunt instrument that's going to win than taking a risk on someone who might not because of his morality.
Yes.
I think against something like against like saying Tyranids as your thing, because it would be great against something that has a terror tactic element. You can't terror tactic Tyranids.
Yes, you can. Take out the synapse.
Yeah, but that's
just a killing. That's like
You can employ the terror tactics can be employed against Tyranids, not in the same way, but you can still employ the same principles of terror tactics. Terror tactics is essentially guerrilla destabilization and assassination,
yeah, but
which are provenly effective against Tyranids, because as soon as you take out their synaptic creatures, as soon as you disrupt their supply lines of biomass, etc., they're crippled. Same tactics.
the Raptors do that, and they don't need to string people up.
But are they effective?
because that's
Yes.
the thing. That's the thing.
I
Is the
don't
way
think they
that the way the Night Lords conduct their terror tactics is not the way that will be effective against Tyranids. The way that,
Okay,
arguably, the way that Raven Guard do.
we're bogging it down into the literal minutiae of the tactics. What I'm talking about the morality of the character here. Do I believe that Gilliman is capable of doing the absolute worst things for the best reasons?
No.
Do I believe, and do we believe, that Kurz is willing to do the worst things for the right reasons?
Oh, yeah.
Well, not only willing, he does.
He has.
Therefore, would you rather have someone willing to do the bad things to save the more people, or would you rather try and save more people, and potentially lose everybody?
I think the problem with something like us is it is the immediate thing is to do the worst thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like there's a moment of is there a better way? It's that is the worst possible way that I could do this, and yes, it's going to, potentially only need to take out a few people, but there is no thought to is there a better way?
And also,
Perfect solution.
there is a bit of a flaw with the tactic of doing the thing absolutely needed, sod the lives that would be lost. Because, yes, you might well deal with Tyranids, but then are you going to be in a fighting fit state to take on what comes next?
You definitely won't be if you're already dead.
Well.
It's an interesting topic.
But he also definitely shouldn't come back.
I want him to come back.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he did.
I'd be confused.
I mean, at this point,
To be fair. Well, they've not brought anybody back who really shouldn't have come back yet.
yeah, they will. Sanguinius will come back.
Oh, he
I'll
better.
take a Sanguinor. Sanguinor?
Sanguinius will come back. He is going to be such a big selling point. I don't think Games Workshop care.
I think they'd have to go through a lot before they got to that point.
Oh, I think he'll probably be the last to come back.
Yeah.
But I think he will come back. Just like I think Horus will come back. I mean, they've already alluded to the potential of him coming back when they rewrote the end of the Death. Iron Hand, Harris Manus, he can come back. I'm sure they'll figure out a way of bringing him back.
Dreadnought.
He's missing his head.
And as far as we know. And there's also no saying that he can't come back, because we already know that there's a version of Fulgrim that's been cloned back to life that's supposedly actually Fulgrim. Therefore, why couldn't they bring back Ferrus?
And is there anything saying that they need more than a head to bring someone back as a Dreadnought?
They only got the body. The head was turned into a skull that...
Yeah, that Horus drank out of.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I don't think there's anything to say that they can't
Orb
come back.
spirity nonsense, yeah.
I mean, there's quite literally nothing in the lore anywhere that says Sanguinius' soul has been destroyed. The only reason people said that Horus can't come back is because his soul was destroyed, which has already been written out. Which means they're all on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they all come back.
Personally, I want them all to come back because I want
Me too.
models of all of them.
And That's what it comes down to, isn't it? Cool models.
Selling point.
Because the Horus Heresy models are fine.
Cast and therefore not very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is if they bring back all of the Primarchs, GW, I'm telling you right now, right? If you bring back Alfarius, as Alfarius, I'm happy. If you bring back Alfarius as a demon prince, I quit. I'm done. Okay? If you bring back both the brothers, one of them can be a demon. I'll accept that.
It's a dual pack.
Yeah, that I can live with.
It's like Marathi, you get both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will concede that as acceptable. I won't like it, but I will concede.
Cool.
Cool.
They'll have to find a bit of like the Emperor's armor for every single loyalist Primarch.
You know you weren't the favourite son when you just get the shoes.
The Emperor's boots of speed. They just got little feathers on them.
No, you get the Emperor.
That's what Alpharis and Omegon get, but they get one boot each, so one gets the right and one gets the left.
Oh dear.
Yeah. No, maybe Ferris gets the helmet. To hide the fact he's got no head.
Yeah.
It's just Weekend at Bernie's two iron hands holding up the body with the Emperor's head and helmet
Do
on.
you imagine what it'd be like if it was like the 40k equivalent of the reliquary from Bretonia? It's just his skeletal body on a throne
Oh.
with no head, and just these iron warriors carrying him into battle.
Wow.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, actually.
Just imagine it, like Space
cool
Marines
as hell.
carrying the body of a dead Primarch into battle.
Jesus.
Or you make it into a dreadnought, but it's like it's a dreadnought that is powered by like other Marines inside of it, and it's like him inside, but like visible. But you've got like other Marines that are like essentially being fed into it to power it. Now that's a model.
You're welcome to borrow those ideas.
Okay.
Cool. Right, well, after that rather dark conversation and morality-defining moment for all of us, I think I'm probably going to be labelled as the evil person in the group. Because, devil's advocate.
No, you're already the evil person.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool. So we now have that firmly established. I think we are done for the day.
I think we are.
Yeah? Cool. Well, thank you, team, for being here and for having a lovely conversation.
It was very lovely.
Yeah, it's been nice.
And I shall look forward to the next one.
Yar.
We hope you enjoyed your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the new format. And that's it from us. So I've been Jay from Mead Hall Gaming, and I've been joined by...
I've been John.
I've been Al.
And I've been Joe.
Thank you very much once again. Do remember to like, subscribe and share, and do follow us on social media. And until next time, we will see you again in the Mead Hall. Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Ta-ta.